Um, Today I'm gonna be interviewing someone. So, what's your name?
My name is Citlalmina Rios.
Okay, and so you're stationed at Camp Lejeune, right?
Yeah, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
So there was a water contamination from 1953 to 1987, correct?
Correct, but I was stationed there after 1987. Those are currently the years that they're recognizing the crisis.
So you said you were stationed after. So what year were you stationed?
I was stationed there from 1994 to 1995, and then I lived there from with your dad from 1997 through 1998.
I forgot to mention this was my mom. Um, so were you affected by the water crisis?
I believe that I was affected by the water crisis, but again, those dates aren't currently recognized. But I also know other women that were also potentially affected by this water crisis during the time that I lived there with your dad.
So you believe you were affected? So what makes you believe this? Like, what were your symptoms?
So when I was living there in 1997 and 1998, in 1998 I became pregnant and had a miscarriage not too long after I found out I was pregnant. It was pretty traumatic, but also I had two um, neighbors that were women that also had a miscarriage. Well, we all had it in about a month or 2 months of each other. They were also married to Marines that were working on Camp Lejeune, and we were living right off of Camp Lejeune at the time.
So a miscarriage, and that is one of the things that's on the VA website about the Camp Lejeune water contamination.
Mm-hmm.
And so would you say these effects were long term or short term?
I believe they were long-term effects because that wasn't the only miscarriage I had, but that was the first miscarriage I had, and that was the one I had when we lived there.
So
Go ahead.
so this question is probably not really relevant because you can't get pregnant. So but do you think if you were able to get pregnant, do you think you would still have a miscarriage?
I think if I were still able to get pregnant, there's a potential that I could have a miscarriage early on again. Yes.
So what would you say this affected you really deeply to this day?
It has affected me pretty deeply because there was, sometimes as women, when we're pregnant, even before we are very far along or we know the gender of the baby, we become very attached. And sometimes as women, um, we feel like that we may have done something wrong to cause the miscarriage. But it is oftentimes not something we've done, but it's just something our body is doing for whatever reason, a lot of times from external factors.
So what is something you would say could have been done better to make it last less long of a time for the water contamination?
I think if the water contamination was recognized earlier in proper cleanup and prevention, outside of that, I really don't know what could have been done. Maybe not intentionally contaminating the water to begin with might have been a good idea.
So the water contamination happened because of like leakage from like a nearby dry cleaner, I think. Something about washing clothes and like I think power plants. And so like they believe it began in like 1953 when the dry cleaner opened, but they don't know for sure because they did not know the water was contaminated until like the early 80s. So it took them a long time to find out the water was contaminated. So what are some steps you would think they should take to make sure the water doesn't get contaminated anywhere else?
I don't know what steps they can take currently to make sure water can't get contaminated anywhere else. When it comes to like leakages, accidental leakages, those things happen, and because they're so small, you don't notice them. But I think sometimes it takes somebody that knows what's going on stepping up and being very vocal about it, which can be hard, especially when it comes to things that involve the government.
So there's like cleanup crews and a bunch of this stuff for like areas that like deal with water. But I was doing my research and it's actually in the sources I have listed, and it says in like one of these articles I was reading that it was founded by like a few like Marines who were stationed there. So do you think the government would have been able to catch it if they actually like check the water more often?
Highly likely.
So I think that should conclude the interview. Do you have any last words to say?
No, thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm. Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a good day.